Late Night with the Devil is a modern horror masterpiece, and to show that, stop me if you've seen this one before. Because... the hell is that? Are you guys seeing this? What is that? Ooh! Found footage horror. And if you thought that my performance a moment ago was over the top, campy, and, well, bad, those are all things that are commonly associated with this genre. It's known for being filled to the brim with overplayed knockoffs of the Blair Witch Project. It seemingly died out in the mid-2010s for just being the same bland thing over and over again, causing it to sort of lose the feeling of realism that made it so popular to begin with. Fast forward to 2024. YouTube is the second most popular website on Earth right next to Google, and it is flooded with videos about lost media. For the uninitiated, lost media is any form of media, be it music, art, or movies, for which there is no public record. Popular cases of this in the world of film are things such as lost silent films, commercials which aired on television but were never recorded, or footage of tragic events. These oftentimes several hour-long videos dive deep into cases of all kinds and form communities around finding specific pieces of lost media. A simple Google search will show you tens of thousands of people who have dedicated hours and hours of their lives to finding things like this old SpongeBob DVD. And that lost media craze is what Cameron and Colin Cairns' new horror film, Late Night with the Devil, implements into its storytelling in order to breathe new life into a dead genre. But first, we have to delve into the world of lost media to learn exactly why it works. On the surface, the wide online interest in lost media seems innocent enough. People making a hobby out of finding unaired pilots, missing short films, and channel bumpers. However, upon actually looking into the niche, you'll notice that the thumbnails reflecting this idea with bright colors and cartoon characters get absolutely dwarfed in views compared to the black and red, grotesque, and oftentimes disturbing thumbnails. Like, this video is about Shrek. Do we really need to put that next to this Harlan Ellison-esque horror? Well, surprisingly, the answer is yes. Marketing lost media with a horror-themed backdrop is incredibly popular, as the internet loves to be scared, even if the thumbnail isn't exactly reflective of the content. This genre of YouTube videos also heavily bleeds into the realm of creepypasta. There's a lot of crossover here, both in viewership and creators. Now, the question of why exactly this type of content is framed to be a spooky thing is bound to be ringing in your mind, but think of it like this. Imagine that someone you know writes a book. Now, let's be honest, you're an internet user. What interest do you have in reading a book? Well, now imagine that after the first manuscript is shown to a test audience, the book's author suddenly tells you that she can't show the contents to anyone. So she locks the book away in a safe and hides it in a remote location where no one could ever find it. Well, now you're very interested in what that book might say. Why is that information being kept from you? What is in that book that would make someone decide to never show it to anyone again after the first read-through? It's human nature to ask questions and want answers, and at its most basic level, fear simply comes from not knowing something. People get the same rush from these videos that they do from a good horror story. They feel like all of the pieces are there, but they just haven't been connected yet, and they still want to know more. So it's really no wonder why these two things coincide so well. One of the most common types of videos within the lost media niche is that of low-budget documentaries. Nexpo, for example, is an excellent creator who makes content like this. Whenever old lost media is discovered, YouTubers rush to be the first to create a long documentary about the search and eventual discovery of the content, whatever it may be. And these types of videos are what I believe to be the inspiration behind Late Night with the Devil. Late Night with the Devil begins with a narration done in the style of a typical documentary, explaining to the audience that in the early to late 70s, a man by the name of Jack Delroy hosted a late night show called Night Owls to compete with Johnny Carson. We see photos and interview clips flash on screen as the narrator tells us of Jack's marriage, career, and suspected cult activity. However, the narrative he weaves takes a dark turn when Jack's wife is diagnosed with cancer. She passes away, and instead of taking a break, Jack devotes everything he has to getting his ratings up and taking over as the top late night show. So, Jack begins to do and say outrageous things in order to get people to watch. But when that too doesn't work, he plans a big Halloween special in which he brings on 3 guests relating to the occult. We're then told that the tapes from that night were lost to time. Well, until now. After years of research, the team behind the documentary has finally found both the master tape of the show and footage that was filmed behind the scenes. What you're about to see, the narrator says, is the compilation of behind-the-scenes footage and what aired on television that fateful evening. For the first time ever, they're finally able to show the viewer what really happened on that fateful night. The parallels here are obvious, not only within the mockumentary style, but also in the premise of the film. In universe, the film shows footage from 1977, but is being presented in 2024. Because before then, the only things people knew about what happened that night came from viewers who watched it live, the studio audience, and presumably Jack himself. This episode and behind-the-scenes footage, if it were real, would absolutely qualify as lost media. In fact, episodes from non-serialized TV shows like this are often the primary subjects of lost media YouTube videos. It fits right in. Additionally, while I won't spoil what happens in the film, it is a horror movie. Scary things happen. And that is just the cherry on top, because as mentioned earlier, most of these videos are marketed to the same niche as horror videos. The remainder of the film is shot in the same style as either The Tonight Show or The Office, leaving audiences with a fresh and terrifying experience. As touched on earlier, the found footage genre died, at least in the theatrical world, in the mid-2010s. There are still plenty of filmmakers using this style online because of how easily accessible it is. Though, what people soon found out is that there really isn't much you can do with it. When the Blair Witch Project released in 1999, the amount of people who actually thought that it was real was staggering. So, as Hollywood does, people began flocking to replicate it, because a film that could convince audiences of the horror it depicted was bound to be a success that people remembered. However, once the market becomes sort of oversaturated with these movies about a group of teens who have a camcorder, the magic sort of wears off. People start to call it lazy, they say the shaky camera movement makes them nauseous, and studios no longer see it as a viable option for creating horror films. So they just go back to what they do best and once again promote jump scare filled, overproduced, bland garbage. And since then, the genre has been dead in the water, relegated to being primarily used in YouTuber ARGs and cheap hooks at the beginning of film analysis videos. Until Late Night with the Devil changed that. I really hope to see more from this specific kind of found footage horror. It being presented this way not only solves the problems of shaky cam, lazy editing, and the same plot being recycled over and over again, but it also invokes that same feeling of realism that made the genre so popular to begin with. The film has already made about 3.5 times its estimated budget within only 2 weeks. Eerily making exactly $666,666 in its first day, according to Screen Rant. I believe that this is a big enough success to signal to Hollywood producers that original takes on the found footage genre are incredibly financially viable and relatively low risk thanks to their minute budgets. I would not be surprised if this film gave rise to even more masterpieces in horror in the coming years. If you're a fan of horror or lost media, you really should see this film. It's a refreshing take on horror in a really good time. And if you're new to the channel and want to see another spooky video I've made, click on the recommended video here. As always, thanks so much to my members listed on the right, and massive thanks to all of you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and believe to achieve.